Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Matt with the Gio Nation, and I am here with a few of my buddies, and we're going to have a bit of a conversation. We're going to have a dialogue. My friend who is over there, over there, that's Matt Hoover,
Oh, hang
and
on now.
oh, oh,
Hi.
Down
I
there.
was right. Sorry. I'm watching. Anyways, let me just give you a quick rundown, and then we'll get into the conversation, and then we'll let everybody introduce themselves. We have opinions on all sorts of different things that go on in China. We're all somewhat connected to China in our own way, and we'll introduce each of our connections to China when we introduce ourselves. And one of those things that there was some opportunity to dialogue about was the situation with Huawei and Meng Wanzhou. And we're all sort of connected to that issue in our own way. And my friend Matt came to me and said, I have a unique perspective on it. And I thought, why don't we take this opportunity to talk to each other and express our ideas, and maybe we can come to a new, better understanding. A lot of people accuse us of being people that don't take the other side of the opinion, and I think this might be an opportunity for us to discuss alternative opinions. So let's just start this off with introductions for everybody on their channel. We are streaming live on Cyrus's channel and Lee's channel and the Gio Nation, and maybe someday Matt's if this continues to be a project. So let's move on. Lee, why don't you introduce yourself over there?
Unmute me. Hi, I'm Lee from the Barrett channel. I've been coming to China for like 13, 14 years now. I'm resident now permanently in Shenzhen. Channels with my son Ollie. A lot of you probably know us. But right now I'm in Hainan, and I'm sitting in the reception lobby area of a hotel. So apologize for any stray background noises.
All right, Cyrus.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cyrus. Coming live at you from beautiful Vancouver, Canada. Very happy to be here this morning, joining Matt from the Gio Nation. Barrett, of course. Barrett and Lee and I did a great live stream a couple weeks ago. It was nice, and excited to meet Matt Hoover over in Toronto. So this is great. We got two people in Canada, two people in China. Yeah, just really excited. I think it's going to be great to have a nice conversation and just hear some different opinions. And this is a very interesting fact, and I'm really excited about this conversation because, we have China and the United States, the two world superpowers, kind of facing off against each other. And it's happening right in the city that I'm at here in Vancouver, right in the courthouse downtown. It's a really interesting case, that all of this is happening in this tiny little courtroom in Vancouver. So, yeah, very excited, that we can talk about this. This has been a big story for years. It will continue to be a big story moving forward. And I think it's great to, get some opinions on it and have a chat.
Cool. And we got Matt. Matt, tell me a little bit about yourself and what's your take?
Sure. I'm Matt Hoover, born and raised in Toronto, Canada. I lived in Asia, particularly Hong Kong and Shenzhen, for about 12 years, and I re-emigrated back to Canada in March of this year, right in the middle of COVID. I've got a unique take on this Meng Wanzhou case, although maybe not so unique, but at least to this conversation. What else you want to know?
I think that's good to start.
Fair enough.
Cyrus, you have had some unique personal takes on this case because you're actually right near the courthouse. You've made a couple of videos over there. You're actually raised the ire of some media over there.
I have. I got an exclusive article written about me, from the SCMP, South China Morning Post. Big shout out to Ian Young. Love you, buddy. No, it's been interesting. It's a really interesting, situation that we have. I love the fact that that's really amazing is obviously it's publicly accessible. Anybody can go into the courtroom. You're allowed to go in. I would highly advise of not taking any video footage while you're inside, though, even in the atrium. Just a full disclosure on that. I've learned a very good lesson there. But no, what's really great is they have it set up. It's kind of a unique situation because of COVID. What they do is they allow up to 5 people from the public per day can actually enter into the courtroom. However, there is an overfill room designed for media and public, and it's a very large media room. They have TV set up. They have I'd say about 50 chairs set up, and they're all 6 feet apart, and everybody gets an assigned chair that you can sit in, and you can watch the broadcast. And so they have a live TV streaming there. And you have a lot of people that go, a lot of different people. It's quite interesting to see. There's a lot of Chinese media that's inside, obviously a lot of Canadian media, and anywhere it can be filled with anywhere from 20 to 50 people, and everybody is following that case, and it's great. I mean, it's pretty unique that you have, like I said, you have this high-profile case of China versus the United States. I mean, this is a huge interest. Obviously, Canada's right in the middle of this. This is a very big interest for Canada. But here we have it. Anybody can walk in, and I think even for a lot of Canadians, they don't realize how big this case is, and it's just going down right in the BC Supreme Court, and it's pretty amazing. So yes, I've had the opportunity to go down to the courthouse several times, watch some of the testimony, and it's fascinating. It's really, really cool to be able to gain that inside perspective.
Cool. And we're going to talk to Lee, and then I'm going to go to Matt. And Matt, you can describe some of your relationship to the case, and we can start really getting into the nitty gritty. So Lee, tell me about your relationship to Huawei and how you kind of came into this project and the opinion on it.
Yeah, well, I'm quite into tech. I follow a lot of tech stuff, and being in Shenzhen, Huawei's headquarters are in Shenzhen, and we got invited down to there to have a look around, and then I sort of the Meng Wanzhou case, and I started paying interest into that. But I look at it more from a tech point of view. I mean, some of the stuff, because Huawei's headquarters is Shenzhen, they use Shenzhen city as kind of like let's say a test bed for a lot of their stuff. So there's a real lot going on with Huawei, and pretty much everybody in Shenzhen, everybody in China knows Huawei. I think it's quite interesting because it's Trump who's put Huawei on the sort of world stage. He's give them so much PR you wouldn't believe. It's kind of interesting that a lot of people outside of China didn't even know who Huawei were. I mean, they've provided telecommunication equipment in the UK for 20 years, but I bet you could ask pretty much anybody in the UK before Trump got in who Huawei are, and they wouldn't have a clue. So, yeah, interesting.
Cool.
Looking forward to getting rolling.
Yeah. All right, Matt, let me tell us a little bit about your experience and some of the points that you brought up to me about the Meng Wanzhou case.
Sure. So I have, my background is basically in corporate security and law. So I was going to be a police officer for a while, and then I decided that wasn't going to be what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But I did get into corporate security, and that's what I did in China, where I was a project manager for the U.S. Consulate General. Very high-profile accounts as well. So when I look at the Meng Wanzhou case, I'm looking at it from a legal standpoint of somebody who had to deal with the law, as far as being like a guard or somebody having to write a report. Every police officer in Canada writes reports in their little notebooks. The CBSA officers do, FBI, and so on and so forth. I also have somewhat of an understanding of tech in regards to Huawei. So I'm coming at it from a couple of different angles, but I really took an interest in it from the legal standpoint. I'm not a lawyer. I don't profess to be, but I do understand how criminal law works, how international laws work in and around travel, particularly. So some of the things that I've seen coming up on YouTube, not just your channels, but Nathan Rich and a few others, there's this sort of way they're talking about how Canada has been handling it, and it's putting Canada in a really negative light, as if we're a puppet, we're at the behest of our bigger brother, the United States. And to some degree, sure, but that really undermines what's happening here, I believe. So I felt that it was important for me to come forward and have a chat with you guys, kind of lay out some of the facts of what's happening, devoid of any sort of emotional bias one way or the other. And that's what I hope to do with you guys today.
Nice.
Well, can we start with one of those facts, and then we can
Sure.
start chewing on it?
Sure. So we'll start from the beginning. So when you're on a plane, traveling internationally, you get on. You've gone through the check-in, go through security. You're at the gate waiting. Oh, time to board. So when they grab your stuff, you're basically affirming in the system that you, Cyrus, you, Matt, and Lee, sorry, are getting on the plane. And then that information is transferred to the country where you're going to be arriving in. Regardless if you're transferring or any of that. It's basically the advanced passenger list. There's a better acronym for it, but it slipped my mind. But essentially, what that list says is who's on the plane, what their visa numbers are. It's basically like a pre-screen. So the plane leaves Hong Kong, and from Hong Kong to Vancouver's 12 hours flight.
Yep.
And yeah, so what we know from what has been released publicly on the case is that an arrest warrant went out, the flight's in the air, and now Canada essentially has 12 to 10 hours to get their crap in order to carry out this arrest warrant. So from my understanding, CBSA, which is the Canada Border Services Agency, got this information. Yes, there's an arrest warrant out. And from that standpoint, they don't know a whole lot about it, why she's being arrested, what the arrest charges are. They just know there's an arrest warrant and it's coming possibly from the United States. I'm not particularly clear on those details. I think that's what we're going through in the courts right now in the evidentiary hearing to figure out what information was exactly known. But be that as it may, CBSA officers received this arrest warrant information, and then they do a little bit of digging, which is understandable. And apparently one of the means of which to get information on Meng Wanzhou, because she's not a Julia Roberts or Jackie Chan. She's nobody to these officers. So they do a little bit of a search, and apparently Wikipedia has popped up as a name of a source where they found out about her. And the CBSA agent felt that there could be an espionage risk. He doesn't know, but CBSA's job role is to protect Canada and Canadians from all threats, whether that be foreigners or domestics. So he has this, oh boy, I've got to arrest this person, high profile CFO. We need to interview this woman before she is turned over to the RCMP. So far in that story, you guys have gotten that right. But where it starts to go a little wonky is when the plane lands and gets to the gate. Now, there's this misconception that the transfer area, or that from the moment you get off the plane to the customs area or immigration, whatever you want to call it, that's a no man's land. That's not the case. Once your plane physically is over the land of the country or sovereignty that you're flying over, you are under those rules, those laws, in theory. The transfer area is just a common courtesy. So there was no violations of rights for CBSA to grab her and then bring her back to questioning. That's the first point I wanted to bring up. So if anyone wants to jump in, I'll keep on talking if you want me to, but
What did you hear from Cyrus or Lee that you felt was contradictory to that?
Sorry, Cyrus, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'll start off talking about the transit zone. I mean, it is. I think what we need to really talk about is that it is in fact a gray area. I mean, it obviously, the transfer zone. Of course, it's in Canada, right? I mean, the land is physically in Canada, but it's not as clear as that. It's not saying that okay, obviously, as soon as you're in the transit zone, you are on Canadian soil. I mean, this is why we have, passport stamps. You have to legally go through immigration. You have to enter into the country. It is different. I mean, we look at other cases, look at Edward Snowden. I mean, he was not arrested.
Yeah.
He was not arrested in Russia. I mean, he had his passport revoked midair. from the United States, and they still could not arrest him. And Putin said he has not entered into Canada or into Russia. So I get there. I think it's really a gray area. I definitely understand what you're saying, and it could be. It's not as easy to just say, okay, this is Canadian soil, or this is, it's a sovereign state. It really is in the middle. So this is why this case is so complicated, because, I think anybody in a transit zone does have, you can stay. There's been many cases over the years where people have stayed indefinitely in these, or for a long period of time. Absolutely, in these transit zones, months at a time, even years at a time, before. So it is not as simple as saying, okay, as soon as that plane has crossed over the international border, bam, she's in Canada, 100%. There is a big gray area to that. So that would be my comment back on that. It's not as clear as that.
Yeah, I mean, I also would like to bring up that Matt Hoover mentioned that, sort of Canada are not doing America's bidding. But I would sort of pose the question then, this arrest warrant was raised in August 2000, or issued in August 2018. And she transited through 6 or 7 countries who all also have extradition proceedings with the US. And also her final destination of Mexico also has extradition proceedings, laws with the US. So it's interesting why Canada were the one, she'd visited, I think, the UK, other European countries, and previous to that, it just seems very interesting that it was only Canada who seemed to step up to the plate to do the sort of the deed, let's say.
No, that's fair.
What's your thoughts on that?
That's fair. I'll get back to that in a minute, but just to touch back on what Cyrus was saying. So I'm very familiar with the Edward Snowden situation as well. He was actually staying, when he was in Hong Kong, in a hotel, that he was staying at the Mira in Hong Kong in Mongkok. That's one of my accounts. We were very aware of where Snowden was before the U.S. police did.
Yeah.
We had just gone through renovation there, and I was designing the security system for there. So I was very aware of who he was in terms of seeing journalists coming in. When you see a journalist come into a hotel, you kind of know. But no, that's interesting. What happened to Edward Snowden is brought up a lot in support of this. It's a gray area. Yes, it's a gray area. It's like a fenced-in area, like a bonded area at an international shipping container facility. So it's subject to the sovereign laws. It's just, it gives them a buffer. It gives people a turnaround to say, oh, shoot, I don't have my visa. I'll get on a plane, go home. Without having to be processed and brought in and formally arrested. This gives them a chance to get out of that. In terms of people, or Edward Snowden sitting in the airport, Russia didn't know what they wanted to do exactly. They didn't know how they were going to play it, because in essence, Snowden, he shouldn't have even been allowed to board in Hong Kong. But Hong Kong just kind of went, I see nothing. Let him through. Because if you looked at the timeline of Edward Snowden, his passports had already been null and void at that point, and he jumped onto a plane. Oh, he's in Russia. Funny that. But because they didn't arrest him doesn't mean they can't arrest him. They decided to grant him a temporary stay in Russia. So the omittance of not arresting does not mean that they can't. They just, for whatever reason, decided to wait, figure out what they were going to do before they let him into the country. And that's the same case with people who stay in the transfer area for months. It really is a common courtesy for travelers. Sorry, Matt, you look like you want to say something.
No, I was just going to say, does that sound like what you guys? I'm just to let you guys know, I'm just here to sort of facilitate the conversation. I'm a neutral party, and I'm friends with all of you. We're all friends together. But I mean, as far as the Edward Snowden case, you could tell. I think there was definitely a Russian incentive to do that a little bit differently. But what were you going to say, Cyrus? You were going to mention something.
Yeah, actually, I want to address a couple of super chats just before we get, as we go. So as everyone knows, on the live streams, we get super chats come in, and we're just going to take a time to address those. So one of them came in, a little thank you sticker from Haza China Vlogs. Haza is a great Australian guy based in Guangzhou, and he's on the TV there, and he's doing a really good job. He's got a great YouTube channel. But anyways, I want to thank him for that support. I like his comment here. What did he write? Just along the lines, isn't it great when people can come together and discuss things civilly, even if they might not 100% agree with each other? And I think that's really important, and that's what we're trying to do. So just want to get a shout out for that. Also another little super sticker from HT Low. So thank you guys for that. So we're going to address these as they come up. I want to just bring up this quote. I'll just say this is this is a quote from Eugenie Varhatsky, a former head of the Russian Federal Migration Service. He says, a person may stay in a transit zone indefinitely. A state has no jurisdiction over that area. Anyone in a transit zone enjoys immunity like a foreign diplomat. He or she cannot be arrested, interrogated, or otherwise restricted in freedom. And if the state believes that a person violates this country's law or poses a security threat, deportation may be considered, but only to the country of his or her citizenship. So I definitely get what Hoover, what you're saying. I agree. I think we all can agree here that it is certainly a gray zone. It's it is Canada. It's treated a little bit differently. I think this is an example. Jayo, you've said obviously like the Snowden case is a little bit more difficult, different. Possibly Russia is just like, okay, I want to kind of agitate the U.S. I'm going to really they probably were very motivated to help him out as best as they could. So anyways, I think this is just I think if you look at it from that regard, like, that would probably have been the best option for Canada, is just to say, like, don't get involved in this, just deport her. If she's accused, now she's been accused of a crime, right? Bank fraud, which is a crime obviously in the United States and Canada. If she has been accused, she has not been found guilty of this crime. It is just an accusation. There is a warrant for her arrest. So if she's coming in, this is the accusation, this is the warrant. They could say, you know what, we're going to deny you, even access to that transfer to Mexico. We're going to deny you access into Canada. We're just going to send you right back on a plane and send you out of here. That probably would have been the easiest situation, for Canada to avoid this. But again, like one of the things that we brought up earlier as well, it is interesting looking at, this arrest warrant. This arrest warrant was actually, been issued on August 22nd, 2018. In the Eastern District of New York. So this was months ahead, where this arrest warrant was issued by New York. And, you have to look at, again, I think, when the FBI started tracking Meng, she visited 6 countries before Canada. I know France and Belgium and, several other countries were all in play. And then obviously she flew into Canada. She was going to Mexico and other countries, Argentina. All of these have these extradition treaties with the United States. Obviously, I think for the United States perspective, Canada is the easiest to deal with. We know that extradition treaties or extradition cases like this can go on for years. It's already almost been 2 years. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. So, from the United States perspective, Canada would probably be your best ally in going through this case, right? If you're United States, you don't want to necessarily deal with Mexico or Belgium. Canada's right across the border. Vancouver's 30 minutes away from the U.S. border. So it's kind of in the backyard. So I think the United States definitely would want to work with Canada on this. And I think that's something that's quite interesting when you look at the details of all of these countries that they could have potentially used. And, so I think that's something that we need to address.
Yeah, Lee brought this up earlier, and I was going to swing around if you didn't. There's a fair question to ask. How come she wasn't arrested by the other places that she traveled to have the extradition treaties with the United States? I don't know. We need to answer that.
Is everybody else losing Matt? I can't hear.
I'm losing him as well.
I'm getting
feedback
from someone.
I've got earphones, so I'm good.
I think I'm picking up Lee.
You're good now, buddy.
There we go.
Yeah.
So
okay.
What I was saying was, for me to comment as to why is just going to be pure speculation. If I was putting out an arrest warrant and wanted a country to pick her up, you got to look at logistics. Like Cyrus said, Canada's right there. She doesn't need to jump on a plane, and she's in the U.S. You can just go on a secure vehicle, and she's in the U.S. It's very simple. Our legal systems are very similar. We have similar laws. The procedures are very similar. So I really think it came down to logistics in terms of why they didn't ask other countries to arrest her earlier. The way arrest warrants work in many cases, so you see in movies something called Interpol. Interpol is pretty much just like a non-profit organization, like the UN of police, but it's really like a computer database where countries send their arrest warrants or information over to Interpol, and then from Interpol, every country that's part of that agreement is allowed to go into Interpol like a cloud and grab information off of it. So, like when you have an international driver's license, and you go to AAA or in Canada CAA, and you sign a little thing, and it's got your information on. You give it back to CAA or whoever, and they send that information off to Interpol, so that when you go driving in a foreign country, they can access your driving records because you've authorized your driving records to be uploaded to an international database. It's the same sort of way with arrest warrants and sort of criminal activity. Any shared information is put into this cloud, and then you kind of, oh shoot, there's an arrest warrant, and that person's coming in. A lot of it is played by chance, unless a country says, oh, by the way, this lady Meng Wanzhou, we would like her arrested, and she's coming. Hey, can you help us out, buddy? And that's essentially a simplified version of how it works. Now, why didn't they wait until she got to Mexico or Argentina? Mexico has a very, and nothing against Mexicans, but they have a very sketchy criminal system. I mean, it's taken years to get Americans who go down and be arrested and extradited back to the States. That's why they started up the whole bounty hunting thing in Mexico. Excuse me. So they knew that she was flying to Canada, and they trust Canada's system with regards to extradition because we get several requests a year. This is a fairly quasi-regular sort of request because, again, happens fairly regularly, and it works out. So I really do think that it just came down to, ooh, she's coming. This is a grand opportunity. Canada, they always respect our arrangement, our treaty.
Yeah.
Why not do it now? And I really don't think it was anything like Trump picking up the phone or one of his lackeys and saying, oh, God, help us out. We have this trade thing.
I definitely. I mean, obviously, that there is the treaty, right? I mean, you have the extradition treaty between the United States and Canada, and I think it's just a really difficult situation for Canada because I think many people certainly are not happy with how things have gone down. I mean, like for instance, I mean, if this is, a lot of people are implying the fact that this is really a political issue, right? This is a whole political ploy between the United States and China. There's a lot of politics involved. I think obviously as Canada, pretty much remaining, liking to remain neutral on things, I would imagine majority of Canadians would be like, I wish we were not in the middle of, this battle between the United States and China. So yeah, I agree. I get what you mean. I mean, obviously Canada, it makes sense. I mean, it just makes sense from every, for the United States, obviously you're going to want to work with Canada. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So.
Yeah, I mean, it looks political.
It does. It definitely
because,
does.
you look at what Trump said. He was very quick to sort of suggest she could be used as a bargaining chip, and that's pretty big news. Everybody knows about what he said, but less people know about it. Justin Trudeau made a statement to a French, it's either a radio show or a TV show, where he says, "Oh, we've told the USA that they shouldn't sign a final pact with the USA unless the Meng Wanzhou and the two Michaels cases are dealt with within that pact." So again, that's another suggestion that there's something political going on there. That's the way I read that.
So I think there is political undertones, and there's definitely the optics of politics playing out, but I think it's more of kind of like a weapon of opportunity. This is politics by opportunity, in that we all know Trump isn't playing 3D chess, right? He's playing checkers if he's lucky. Maybe slides and ladders, who knows? But what I really believe happened in terms of Trump is that this thing landed on his lap and he went, whoa, I can use this maybe. I really don't think he was like, oh yeah, we need this leverage over China, arrest somebody. I really don't think so, because if you look at this case, she's kind of been under investigation since about 2010. At least she's been on the radar of financial reporters since 2010. But in terms of Trudeau saying that comment on probably a Quebec radio station, all the power to him. Like, his request fell upon deaf ears when we went to Britain. We're in the Commonwealth with them, and deaf ears when it came to the United States about putting pressure on China because of this retaliatory arrest of the two Michaels. And I mean, it really, like, it would be hard to argue that it's not a retaliatory arrest. The other Canadian that was, I can't remember what city he was in, somewhere in the south near Xiamen, I think. Anyways, another Canadian was arrested, convicted of drug trafficking. And then, of course, after Meng Wanzhou was arrested, the trial came back up, and then he was put onto a sentence of death, suspended death penalty or something to that effect. And if you looked at the what happened in that case is that this Canadian, a foreigner, thought he would get this. Well, we've all lived in China. You know, with law, we kind of get away with a little bit more than some people might, because, oh, let's not deal with the foreigner because it's gonna create some sort of paperwork that we don't want to deal with. So you had this Canadian who got these charges, got the sentence, and then he, according to Chinese media, raised a stink about his situation, what the sentence was, and basically China, to simplify it, said, you know what, if you're going to be a spoiled brat, sure, let's look at the evidence again. Yeah, you're right, this warrants death. So, because we all know China takes drug charges and offenses quite strictly.
Correct.
That's the one thing you don't do in China. Money laundering, all that. Yeah, fine. I mean, fine. But drugs, whew, you don't touch with that in China.
Yeah. I'd like to make one point.
Let me ask this. We had a super chat here. We could kind of touch on it. Jayo, could you provide some insight? We got two Canadians here. And just from your general surroundings, what's their opinion on the case from the people that you hang around with, that you associate with in Canada?
I would like to clarify, I am American living in Canada. I'm still U.S. national. It's okay. I'm on the pathway to Canadian citizenship, so I'm
you're abandoning ship.
I'm not abandoning. We have dual nationality. I'm actually a dual national. I'm a German national, I'm an American national, and I'm about to become a Canadian national in 6 months. Wow. So going to be the trifecta. No, but I am a Canadian permanent resident, but I am an American citizen. But obviously, I do live in Canada, live in Vancouver. I mean, I think I mentioned this briefly. I mean, I think with the public opinion, here in Canada, I think there has been there has been a poll that was released, that said like 75% of Canadians agree with the handling of Meng's case here in Canada. Now, what does that really mean? Does that mean, do they agree at like how the process is being, held out? I think, again, like the point that I mentioned earlier, I would imagine that most Canadians would rather not be in this situation, caught in the middle between the United States and China. I think for most Canadians as well, obviously there's two Canadians, in China, and that's where probably most Canadians, I'd say, would be, have more emotion in this case. Is they're not really caring about Meng, as far as what's going on here. It's more they're interested in the two Michaels that are in Canada. And I think that is an issue. But I mean, I think for most Canadians, I mean, again, like even here, it's kind of under the radar, for many people here. Again, like that's why I think it's quite interesting is, we have the two world superpowers going off in this small little courtroom in downtown Vancouver. For your average Canadian here, they're not really paying attention to what's going on. I think as well, I've heard from a lot of people because of the numerous articles that are coming out all the time. I mean, it's like, wow, this has been 2 years. Like, I'm sick and tired of this. Even some local reporters here that have been covering this case, it's like, yeah, I'm really tired of writing about it, but this is what we got to do. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, just as far as Trump, I personally don't think it's a Trump-initiated thing, because if you look at the way he dealt with ZTE, he wanted to get a quick resolution to that, because he's all about doing deals, isn't he? He's a kind of business-minded. He would have loved to have got a good trade deal with China, and I think it's probably other people within the administration that orchestrated this. And I suspect Trump would have probably thought, and I think that's why he said what he did, because he didn't, I feel that Trump himself didn't want to have that situation. I think he wanted to, like, they also found ZTE in a potential violation of the rules, and they issued them with a fine. They didn't arrest any of their executives. I mean, this also goes back to a number of years ago. They did a very similar thing. It's obviously USA want to get rid of Huawei. If the US could wave a magic wand and Huawei disappear, I'm sure they would do that. Huawei is a big pain in the side for the US, and it has very similar bearings onto what happened with the French company Alstom a number of years ago. They did a very similar thing. They arrested a sort of executive from there. They kept him in prison on trial for however long, and then very strangely, as soon as Alstom agreed to sell to GE and transfer all their technology and pretty much all their company, all the charges were, well, they weren't dropped. I think he was convicted, but there's a time already served, and they pretty much let him go. And I can't help thinking there's a similar thing at play here, because I mean, I'm sure the US would love to get their hands on Huawei's tech. I've been to Huawei's headquarters. Literally, the amount of engineers, developers, and all that they've got going on there. There is a lot of stuff being created and invented and designed there, and I think the US are really saw that they fell so far behind in the telecommunications space. And Huawei is obviously a big threat to them, and it seems to me this is just another string in their bow of attacking Huawei by arresting Meng Wanzhou.
I do want to follow up on one thing on that as well. That when we're talking about this, extradition treaty and things like that, for instance, we already talked about this fact that many people do believe that this is highly politically motivated. And so many countries around the world, when it comes to these extradition requests, they are able to deny these if in the government's opinion that they do feel that the suspect is sought for political crime. So, I mean, if we're talking really about Meng, being attacked for political reasons, this is a potential, reason that Canada could deny this request. In addition, I mean, when we're talking about it, it is very rare for a high level executive like this to be arrested. I've heard people say, that if this was any other company, if it wasn't Huawei, which obviously, like Leah's just mentioned, is really a pain to the United States because of how advanced they are. They have the 5G technology. I mean, they really are leaps and bounds ahead of what's currently being developed in the U.S. I mean, if this was another company, you would imagine there could potentially be a fine. If they did something, if they illegally sold some products to Iran, you're looking at a multi-million-dollar fine, and then off you go. Companies can certainly be charged criminally. And we look back at the 2008-2009 financial crisis.
Sure.
This is what happened. But it's rare for now the executive to be charged. So there is just so much. I mean, it's really hard to not say that this is not politically motivated, and that's a huge element that really needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Cyrus. I think if that had been any other company, they wouldn't have arrested an executive of that company. You look at all the wrongdoing of the 2008 financial crisis. There were very few people brought to justice over that. It was just fines for the banks. I think even HSBC ended up settling for a $1.2 billion fine for all their misdemeanors, but none of their executives were ever arrested, and they violated a huge amount of US financial rules, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
Matt, do you know anything about this? Reportify, Alex asked Matt about the RCMP and CBSA followed Section 8 of the Canadian Charter of Rights. What is that about?
So the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms is like our Constitution in a way. So essentially, like, you have the rights to, well, we don't have free speech here. We have freedom of expression. And a lot of our laws are like a tree. They're not written in stone like it seems the U.S. is. I have to say, I can't comment on that specific charter because I didn't prepare myself to memorize the charter. So I really can't comment on that with any confidence to any degree. But to circle back to what you asked earlier about the perception of the case in Canada, like Cyrus said, there's a lot of Canadians that just wish this wasn't happening here, and I'm one of them. I'm like, geez, why didn't she fly directly to Mexico? Those flights exist. God damn it. In a perfect world, she would have landed here. We never would have gotten the arrest request, and we'd be trucking along dealing with other issues. But she did, and we got the request, and we had to carry it out because that's what you do when you're a partner with one of these agreements. Now, China, for all of their efforts, tried to get an extradition treaty with Canada years ago, but Canada felt that they didn't feel the criminal justice system in China was going to be adequate or fair. Now, I know that's going to probably get a lot of people upset, but that's the truth of the matter. Is the legal system in Canada was, in China, was that we didn't have confidence that people would be given a fair trial, and that's why Canada didn't get into it. But if we did, and China had said, look, there's this Chinese national, he's run away with a bunch of money, which that's what happens. There's several arrest warrants out in Interpol to arrest Chinese nationals for money laundering and extortion and all sorts of other crimes, financial crimes, and they're not sent back because they just don't believe in the judicial system of China, and they don't have the agreements in place. So, Canada wishes, the population wishes, and I'm sure Trudeau wishes this never happened, but it did. Sure. But we have to deal with it. And on that point, what Meng is going through now, people of China should be happy about, because we, in some degree, we're giving her every opportunity to fight this request. We could have just said, okay, fair enough. You sent the arrest warrant. Double criminality has been satisfied. Off you go. You deal with the court case in the U.S. But she has the right to fight that, and that's why it's been drawn out for 2 years. Sorry,
I'd quite like to come back on that, because I feel she's not getting a completely fair case. There was a lot of documents that her lawyers asked to be presented in court, and that was refused. And then the documents that were presented were heavily redacted.
That's fair.
And that, to me, that raises a lot of suspicions, because there's a potential, and it seems as though from some of the evidence that wasn't redacted, that there was a lot of communication between the Canadian border authorities, the Canadian police, and the FBI during the time of everything was going on. So from that, it suggests that the FBI was really driving things. And the questioning when she came into Canada, they questioned her for a length of time before they even made her aware that there was a warrant for her arrest. And again, I think that is completely wrong. And she wasn't, we mentioned at the start, Matt, that you says she was originally sort of looked at from a Canadian point of view that she might pose a security risk to Canada and that, but yet none of the questioning was anything to do with anything that had gone on in Canada. It was all to do with about Huawei and Iran. So again, that seems something that it doesn't all quite add up to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Matt, let me interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
No, I've got some super chats that I want to address.
Please.
So yeah, let me just address these real quick. So we got one from Caliber Wings. Thank you all for your time this Sunday evening to provide insights to the community. Absolutely, it's all of our pleasure to be here. Matt in Toronto, great to have you on the show. I love connecting. That's why we love doing live streams. It's a great way to connect with fans and just really make it fun, right? It's live. That is the unique thing about this. We also have a super chat here in from Hua Xia Chengcheng Mei Wei. You guys are letting more people know the real China. Truth and justice are qualities that everyone on Earth has. Thank you very much for that super chat. And another one from what is this? Psychopath. Yeah, thank you. Psychopath as well. It is very creative. So and
we just got another one.
And we just got another one. I'm Kieran from San Diego. I own a P30 Pro and convinced these would sell like hotcakes if not for the controversy.
Let me just quickly jump back in because I forgot to thank our super chat. So we got Trevor Norman, and we also got 2 super chats earlier off a couple of Chinese people, but unfortunately I can't read who they are because my Chinese is nowhere near the level of our resident Chinese expert, Cyrus. Yeah. But thank you everyone for who supports our channel. It's very, very appreciated.
I can't show your super chats if you make them on Lee's channels, just to let you know. Like, that's why I'm not displaying them. Just to let you guys know, I'm pulling comments that I think are sort of interesting and just letting them go underneath.
Sure.
So if there's something there that you think is something you'd like to talk about, I can go back to them, but I'm just kind of like pulling little comments here and there and letting them go as you guys talk. So continue.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to circle back on. Both of you have said some really good points. So in regards to the certain documents that she is not allowed to see, according to national security, they can hold these documents back. And I understand that. But we have a system in place where a lawyer that has that security clearance can view those documents on her team's behalf, knowing that those documents are not going to be leaked, if that makes any sort of sense to you. So this is a non-partisan, non-political lady who's got security clearance to view documents on her lawyer's behalf. So it's not as if she's not being represented at all areas. They actually have these court-appointed people that have been thoroughly vetted and can view these documents from a legal point of view. She went in, saw these documents, and said, no, there's nothing here that is going to make your argument any more salient. So I believe this may be a flaw of my own, but I do believe in our legal system being able to do that for her.
But those documents have actually been redacted
without any sort of bias.
And CSIS refused that. But CSIS refused that request, and they have
to do what?
To have access to those documents.
To have them accessed by her legal team in a public court, yes. But those documents reviewed by this court-appointed representative. I've forgotten her title, her name, but she's essentially a lawyer.
Right.
But she has security clearance, and that's understandable, especially when you're dealing with the levels of CSIS. CSIS is like the FBI or NSA,
right?
But in Canada, just for those that are unaware, because a lot of people don't know who CSIS are.
Yeah,
and they operate in many levels.
Well, sorry, that is the Canadian. Say that because I know we have a lot of people not from Canada. So what is the acronym again? Canadian.
Canadian Security and Intelligence Services.
There we go. Canadian Security Intelligence Service, just for everybody, so we're all on the same page.
They are like the FBI and CIA and NSA wrapped into one. So, like, they handle the drug problems. They handle financial crimes, and pretty much everything. There's a level of spying. I mean, it'd be stupid not to, but it's not anywhere near what the U.S. is in terms of that, or any of those departments that I mentioned, because just lack of funding. But we're part of an international intelligence community that they share information, and like the same way as FBI said, oh, there's an arrest warrant out for her, please get her. And that arrest warrant really did come from the financial courts in New York City that sent it to the FBI and said, hey, this lady's committed fraud. We'd like her arrested because we want to bring her up on these charges. Actually, going back to what Lee said earlier, trying to make, I'm not saying you're nefariously trying to make this connection, but it is out there, and I've heard it, is that this is all part of the way to stop the advancement of Huawei's 5G technology getting into US and yada, yada, yada. Except it's not. That's completely separate. Again, she has been investigated by investigative reporters and police services around the world since 2010 for the relationship between Skycom and Huawei. This is not new. This is not, oh, Trump's in, or, oh, we've banned Huawei and their 5G, and they're trying to eliminate that. Although there are the optics of it. I cannot deny the optics of it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that is true. I mean, that she's definitely been, oh, hold on. Did we lose?
No, I hear
I think
everybody.
we're all here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it cut off. No, that's fair point. I mean, she's definitely been, people have been researching this, and it's not. I agree. I mean, this is not like this just happened, right? This is the first time this has happened. But I think a new, maybe what we can talk about next is, we're talking about. I think you said an interesting thing, Matt, as far as that China or Chinese people should feel good about what's happening. With Meng, in the sense that she can have a right to she has the chance to defend herself, instead of Canada just saying this. Now, I think the interesting thing here is I think you're somewhat right in that. However, a lot of her rights were violated in this process, and I think that's really a key point for me, because I'll give you a perspective from me. As I've mentioned before in this live stream, I'm an American citizen. I'm an immigrant to Canada. Okay, my wife is a Canadian national. When we moved to Canada, I immigrated here, right? I went through the process to become a permanent resident. I am one now. I'm, again, 6 months away from citizenship. So in Canada, we have the rule of law, much like the United States. And, this is a backbone, fundamental foundation of these Western countries. And for instance, in my home country, America, you always hear our politicians saying, look, this is why America is the freest country in the world. This is why we're the best country in the world. We have rule of law. We have these systems, this order, this process, or as here in Canada, we say process. But yeah, I'm learning. Now the thing is you have the right to remain silent, right? You have the right to have access to your attorney. You have the right, you are innocent until proven guilty.
Correct.
All of these things, were violated, and that's the big issue for me, is that, with this case is you have to look at the facts, and the facts are very simple that, they brought her into secondary, they illegally searched her, they grabbed her devices, they asked her to write down the passcodes to those devices. The CBSA, the Canadian Border Services Agency, accidentally passed these devices passcodes to the RCMP. Now he's testified in court and said, this was a really bad mistake. I mean, for me, I just cannot comprehend. Again, like you've gone on Wikipedia, you've researched who Meng Wanzhou is. She is a extremely high profile person. You have the FBI involved in this. There's just no possible way, absolutely no way that a guy makes this mistake. How do you ask somebody of this high profile to write down the passcodes to your devices? Then it's like, oh, I accidentally, somehow I gave that paper to the RCMP officer. Again, her devices should have never been taken. She should have never been questioned without access to an attorney. All of these things have violated her rights. And so that is a huge issue, with this case.
Not at all. Her rights were not violated in that regard. CBSA did not arrest her. So unless you're under arrest, those rights are not activated. You know what I mean? Like there was no arrest by CBSA. They can bring her. CBSA has the mandate to question anybody trying to enter into Canada, right? That includes transiting as well. So if you go up to the border, and like there's a television show called Border Security or something like that. It reruns now, but it's basically like ports of entry into Canada. People coming for all sorts of reasons, vacation or otherwise. And if they get a sneaky suspicion that something isn't right, they take you back to secondary. So if you say, or they ask you, how much money did you bring with you? And you're stumbling to find an answer or something suspicious, they'll go, you know what? Come to the back.
But the point is she wasn't going to be entering Canada. So why would they have had that? The sole reason they took her into secondary was to arrest her, really, because she wouldn't have had any reason to be going into Canada, if she was carrying money and that, because that would have only been relevant if she'd have been entering Canada.
So there's the gray area, right, that we discussed earlier, is the sovereignty. Again, it's a courtesy. The transfer area is a courtesy to travelers. Not every country has this for their own reasons. Maybe they don't have the logistics to set it up, but it is just a courtesy to travelers. So you don't have to, every time you transfer, get off the plane, go through customs, deal with the hour wait. Oh my God, I'm going to miss my flight. It really is a courtesy, but you are on Canadian soil. And if there is an arrest warrant when you land, it has to be carried out over time. Like she landed, and from the point of view of, they are aware that there is an arrest warrant. CBSA is aware. So then they have to look at...
Yeah, they're aware. So that's why I would like to suggest that if theread been no arrest warrant, she wouldn't have been pulled by CBSA at all. She'd have just continued on.
Like I said earlier, whenever we travel, our advanced passenger information is sent in, like the name suggests, in advance, but to the plane arriving. Now, unless there is a specific, hey, we know such and such is on a plane, nab them when they get off. Like this is very regular. It's more common with countries' own nationals, but if there is no push request, you might not notice. Oh shoot, Meng Wanzhou's on a plane. You're just not aware of it, so you don't think, okay, grab her. But then there's an arrest. She is part of this massive international company. Maybe we need to look deeper into her. Oh my God, there's some controversy about Iran. Well, we know she's going to get off the plane and be arrested by the RCMP, right? Because we're clear on that. There's the arrest warrant. So she's coming into Canada regardless of CBSA going, oh my gosh, we need to look into it. So they go, oh wow, we don't know what she's being arrested for necessarily. That part I'm very unclear, but we're in the evidentiary part of the hearing, so more and more information will become available to us. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. It just slipped. But
okay.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure they did know, because there was a number of meetings that took place between the police and the border services. So I don't believe for 1 minute that they weren't speaking to each other about what the reason was. I think they both knew very well.
I know what the
to say that they didn't know what she was going to be arrested for. I think I don't sort of follow that one.
Yeah, well, just a couple of these super chats that are coming in, both from Wang Tizhou. First one he said was the U.S. arrested a highly officer of Alstom, forced Alstom to sell a lot of tech to GE. that we addressed that issue earlier. So there are some similarities in that case. But again, and then the last super chat was, but she did not try to enter Canada, and that is exactly what Leah said right here, is that she never was going to enter Canada. So I think that is why obviously CBSA had to pull her off, pull her out immediately. I mean, there was 3 officers in the jetway as soon as she got off the plane. I mean, it was very clear what they were going to do.
Right. So I imagine all of you have followed what was going on with the Hong Kong extradition treaty, like the fear of it. And a lot of the fear was, and this is how extradition treaties are written, is that even if people are transferring through, because Hong Kong is an international hub. It is like strategically located for international travel to go from US to anywhere in the APAC region, right? So if they had this extradition treaty with China, Hong Kong had it with China, then there was that worry that anybody who pisses off China could be picked up on a transfer flight.
Right.
This has been raised before.
Right.
I mean, this is not just because of the arrangement with Canada and the US. This is everywhere you travel. If you've done some stuff in a country that is a bit shady or whatever, and you transfer through, you're taking a risk. I mean, that's why a lot of people, in my opinion, fly privately and avoid larger airports, if I had to guess. But
hey guys,
in regard,
can I chime in?
Yeah.
I just want to say we're hitting the hour mark. We're an hour into this conversation. I don't know how much more we want to talk about the details, but I think that just throwing this out there, maybe we could talk about where we think this is going to go, and each one of us, you guys, can give your perspective
opinion
on where this
yeah.
might go. Because I think that might be an interesting way to kind of tie this thing off, and then maybe we could talk about the show and the future of it next.
Sure.
Go
ahead, guys.
So Lee.
Okay, so a couple of things I think in the most recent court case, some evidence was allowed. Initially, that evidence was not going to be allowed. That was suggesting that the US didn't provide accurate information about the slides of the presentation that was presented to HSBC. That has now been allowed. I feel that Canada are now trying to look for a way to exit things and
sorry.
I think that would
sorry
be
about that.
That's okay. I think that would be a major sort of step in that direction, because if Canada could turn around and says, well, we did it based on the evidence that the US provided to us, and now we found that evidence was actually not correct. So that may be a way for Canada to exit things. So I think that's where it's going to go. I think the case will ultimately be dropped against her. I think also with the change of administration may have a big bearing on this, the US administration. And before I go, I'd just like to thank everybody who's contributed super chats. I do find it very, very strange, as if the US felt they had such a strong case, why they sort of, let's say, twisted the evidence that they presented to get the extradition warrant in the first place.
Fair.
Cyrus?
Well, I think I'm waiting for Justin Trudeau to give Matt Hoover and I a personal call and get us involved in this case. I mean, I'm on the ground here in Vancouver. So Justin, if you are, or Mr. Premier Trudeau, if you are watching this, ready to go whenever you need me. Hoover, you can fly in from Toronto. We got this. No, just having some fun. I mean, a couple of things. I think that one thing I think everybody is really in agreement is that this is not really this is not going to be resolved anytime soon. I think everybody's kind of under the, we accept that reality. Now, the interesting thing is after this week's, hearings this week's hearing and the evidence that's been presented, the next time that everything is going to meet, we're going to meet again in February. And this is where Meng's lawyers are going to move forward and try their best to get this case thrown out of the Canadian system. Will they be successful? Who knows? Like Lee had just mentioned, I think them being able to have that evidence, resubmitted in, because again, for those of you that don't know, there was I believe it was a 24-page PowerPoint document that was used as the evidence, to say that Meng committed this bank fraud. 2 of those slides were omitted. And so obviously that was a very crucial point for Meng's lawyers, saying, look, we should have the full document. If you include those other 2 slides, it provides a very clear explanation. So by the judge allowing that evidence to be brought in, that's certainly going to be in Meng's favor. We'll see. I mean, there is still a lot of dispute whether, about her rights, being violated. And so I think, again, the big issue here as well is that warrant was for an immediate arrest. And I mean, immediate arrest. That doesn't mean that CBSA, I get the idea that you're saying, okay, if CBSA thinks that you are a national security threat, they have the right to question you. Yeah, you can certainly ask passengers to be, questions, what is your purpose here in Canada? Are you carrying any money into Canada? I mean, all of these generic questions. Oh, you look a bit shady. I'm going to bring you into secondary, ask you some more questions. But the issue is that RCMP was there as well. And the reality is they were questioning her knowing that they were going to arrest her, and so again, the warrant is for an immediate arrest. If that's the case, then arrest her and then give her the rights, let her have access to an attorney. You can't get her devices and again, the devices were put in a specific electronic bag that that deactivated the signal so that she could not send out messages or receive them. She could have I mean, we don't know. I mean, again, like you have a high profile person like this, now all of her devices are being accessed. She doesn't have access to them for hours at a time. I mean, there's a lot of dodgy stuff that's gone on in this case. So I think it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. Obviously, with these extradition processes, they can be appealed and it goes on for years. Again, I mean, like one of the things that I always try to work on with my YouTube channel is trying to find cooperation, trying to find common ground. This is why I love having Matt Hoover in here today. Like bringing in a different opinion. Let's chat about it. But like at the end of the day, all of us, we want to find a solution, and we need to. All of us, right? Canada, U.S., China, all of us need to get past this at some point. There's some speculation maybe Biden's going to be involved in this differently. I don't know if that's really going to change things personally, but we'll see. That's kind of my thoughts. I still think we got a long way to go, but I am looking forward to February, to see the next step.
Cyrus, you were giving me a lot of speculation there, but if you were going to put your money on something, what do you think's going to happen? Do you think she's going to be released, or do you think that she's going to be extradited?
Well, I'm hoping that I think she'll be released, because okay. I think if you are Canadian, and you want to and you believe in the rule of law and you believe in this legal system, this would be dangerous for Canada if they extradited her, because that basically means that there is some fallacy in the legal system here. And this is the principle based on Western law, right? United States or Canada or the UK, right? That is something that you often hear people saying. We have rule of law. This is what makes us different than other countries around the world. This is why we embrace freedom. Again, like I've been in that transfer area. I'm not a Canadian national. I'm a foreign national here. Who's to say that my rights are not going to be violated the next time I fly in? This is why we have certain rules. And, you have to follow this. So I think if I was a betting man, I would say that she will not get extradited. She'll be released. And, hopefully, the two Michaels can, be resolved at that time as well, and figure out what the next step is. Again, like we need to find a solution, because the last thing we want is this to drag on for years again. And, it's all 3 countries involved. This is a terrible thing. So sorry for my long answer.
No, it's okay.
Just one.
Matt, what do you think? Oh, sorry, Lee.
Can I just jump in very quickly there? I think if she is extradited, it will ratchet up the tension even more between the US and China, obviously. So that's something that wouldn't be good, man.
All
right. I'll try to make this short and sweet so we can get on to the rest that Jiayou wanted to mention. First of all, her rights are not violated in terms of the questioning, search, and seizure. Again, she was not under arrest. She was just gone back to secondary. So, yeah, there's optics of, well, she wasn't going to go into Canada anyways unless there was an arrest warrant, but there was, and she was going to enter. So we need to make sure she's cleared, security-wise. I mean, there you have it. Anytime any of us enter Canada, PR, Cyrus, me, I'm a Canadian citizen, I can be asked for my devices from CBSA and not be under arrest. It's just the fact of the law. I mean, it's there. They can collect them. They can take them. If I have the option to not give my passwords, but that's going to make my life more difficult. If I'm really innocent of doing anything, like I don't have child porn on, I don't have any other contraband on my phone, I'm just making a bigger problem for myself because they're going to have me sit there until they can gain access, or they find out, yeah, you know what? He's no risk. Let him in. That's what it comes down to. The CBSA is not responsible, or they don't have to tell you, oh, we would like your devices, but hey, you don't have to give it to us. You don't have to give us your passwords. There is nowhere in their mandate that says they have to do that. The police, yes, that's where RCMP comes in. When she is actually arrested on charges.
Yeah, but again, she wasn't arrested.
Right.
They did that before.
She was
exactly.
arrested,
and
by
they
the
passed the
RCMP.
devices to RCMP.
Correct.
They actually passed them
after she was arrested. So again, CBSA and the RCMP are two completely separate entities. They talk, they cooperate, but they have their rules and their procedures and protocols that they follow. And CBSA has a really large girth of operation. I mean, they can ask people, like, you're coming into Canada, you're going to be arrested. You are in Canada. You got off the plane. You are in Canada. We can ask you anything we want.
But even one of the officers in court said he found it strange that she wasn't arrested straight away and that the border services dealt with her. Even one of the officers in the case.
Look, if she was arrested first on the jetway, she still has to be processed by CBSA, right? You can't enter Canada without being processed. It means
so why wasn't it like that? So it seems to me strange that should have been the process. She should have been arrested as she left the plane and then handed back to the border to process her and then handed back to RMCP. But that's not how it happened.
It could have happened that. It could have happened that way, but
it should have really happened that way.
Not necessarily. The police even said, "Look, they have they are the first contact of people arriving into Canada traditionally. So you get off the plane, you go into customs or clearance, whatever you want to call it. They have priority. So the RCMP went, oh, she's not going to go anywhere. We're going to be right there anyways.
But I believe they don't have priority. I think the police. I think
you can believe it, but it's true.
Have equal power at the airport.
They have power at the airport, but they do not have the power to deal with customs and immigration. That is not within their mandate.
We've lost.
But to go forward on, just to wrap this up, how I think the case is going to go. I wish I had a magic ball to tell me which way it was going to go, but I think she's going to be extradited unless one of two things happens. One, there is political involvement, and Biden says, look, guys, this is creating too much of a situation. Please drop all charges against her. And then they will send that request to Canada, and we will release her. The other way it'll happen is the prosecutor himself says, you know what, fine, let her go. But the idea that these are trumped up charges, and Lee, you mentioned it. Why arrest the CFO? They don't arrest CFOs and CEOs of other companies. The point is those PowerPoint documents, regardless of those pages being omitted, not added to it, it doesn't help her in any way. I've seen your friend Ian Young from the South China Morning Post posted 17 slides from the Huawei PowerPoint, and those don't help her. Those incriminate her. If that's a complete PowerPoint, it incriminates her. And I can't imagine in any way 2 extra pages saying, yeah, we sold the company in 2008 or 9. I can't remember exactly. And yeah, we filed some documents on their behalf in Brazil. Yeah, Huawei executive in Iran had signing rights to bank accounts for Huawei, but they also had signing rights to Skycom in Iran at the bank. Yeah. The PowerPoint surely said that. I don't think so. And that's where the charges come from. The U.S. government, for lack of a better way to say it, or the prosecutors in New York are basically saying, yeah, Huawei said they sold Skycom. Skycom was created by Huawei as a subsidiary to handle certain businesses around the world. Then they sold it. And what the U.S. is alleging happened is that they sold it to a shell corporation that, through further reading, apparently even has ties to Syria. But that's where it really gets confusing. But nonetheless, what the U.S. prosecutor is saying is, because in the PowerPoint, so this meeting was HSBC's risk analysis, risk management sort of process. Look, we heard that these 2 companies deal with each other. Go have a meeting and figure out what the hell's going on, because we deal with their US dollar transactions. And if they're the same company, we're screwed. So they went into this meeting and said, hey, you need to clarify the relationship between Skycom and Huawei. And she said, yeah, no problem. Sent out the PowerPoint. Let's have a meeting. She verbally said what was in the PowerPoint through translator to the HSBC risk management employees. And it said, it was written in first person. So it uses I and we. So she's incriminating herself and saying, we sold it. I did this. We did that. That's why they arrested her. Otherwise, if it was just this grant, like, oh, the company, we don't have proof of who ordered it, who did this, who did that. Yeah, it would have just been like every other banking case. Oh, we don't know who did it. It's corporate BS and bureaucracy has hidden the true crime. Yeah, here's a fine. But the fact that they've got the PowerPoint of her saying, yes, I am saying we sold it. I am no longer in charge of the company. But then through investigation, you find out that Meng Wanzhou in 2012, that's 4 years or so after she apparently sold Skycom and has no say in what they do, 4 or 5 years later, was in Brazil, Sao Paulo, submitting documents to the business registry on behalf of Skycom, and then appointed the people to run Skycom in Brazil. So you start seeing these discrepancies come up, and you're like, wait. Are they really separate, or are they not? And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but I mean, then just give the company a penalty. You know, I mean, if that's the issue,
and it might come to that though at the end of the day. But they got to get her to the U.S. to prosecute her, and they might have a plea.
But I mean, look at Apple. Apple has been accused of doing bad things, and they've been fined. I mean, are they taking Tim Cook off a plane?
But does Tim Cook, like, have they found evidence that says, yeah, Tim Cook ordered that we do this? That's the difference. They have a document that Meng Wanzhou made. There's I and we. She uses the first person to talk about how everything went down. If she's admitting to it, whether she meant to or not, it's debatable and in court. But that's the fact of the matter, and you can't argue that. I mean, Skycom bid to sell HB products to Iran, which was a no-no, selling HB products to Iran back in 2010, 29, something like that. But in the tender process documents, it said Huawei confidential and had the Huawei logo on it. I mean, there's all these sort of instances of pop-ups of Huawei's fingers being on Skycom. For example, they seem to, Reuters found evidence of members of the board of Skycom also being in the organizational charts of Huawei at the exact same time. So if there's no relationship anymore, they really are a separate entity. Why are Huawei employees board members in Skycom? Like, these are the sort of inconsistencies. And we've all probably have read versions of the Panama Papers and the other papers that came up in the Cook Islands or whatnot. That's all it was. Like, this company that bought Huawei is in the Mauritius Islands and was run by, Skycom was sold to the Mauritius Islands company, and for all intents and purposes, it appears to be a shell. So, going back, if the charges aren't dropped, she'll be extradited and she'll probably be found guilty, or they'll plea, and then there'll be the fine and she'll be released. But I do see it going forward. At least, if the U.S. doesn't drop the charges, it'll definitely end up in court.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I took a little bit longer than I wanted to, but
Right.
yeah, that's what I think is going to happen.
Okay. All right, guys. I'll tell you what. Let's put our thumb on this one. And is that okay for everybody? Does anybody want to counter in this, or we could? I think we've got our voices out there.
I think we got it out, and I think it was very constructive. Again, I think this was a really good session to have on here, because we have, I love Matt. Thank you so much for coming in, live from Toronto. I really appreciate your insights, and I think all of us, have an interest in this case. Obviously, if you are watching China, this is certainly a big case, for Matt and I. Personally being here in Canada, it's even something a little bit more interesting. So again, I love the fact that we can come together, and figure out. I mean, I think personally, I think what, Matt, I'm going to agree with you. As far as I think the United States will drop the charges eventually, and she will not be extradited, or should not be found guilty. I think that's probably the easiest option, just to keep at the end of the day, this is a very political issue, and we are. You look at the world economy, you look at the COVID fallout right now. Everything. We need to be moving. We need to figure out how to get our world back together again. I'm all about building bridges and trying to figure this out. I think, it's just not going to be the best, for the United States and China relationship if they're going to continue down this. I think so. Yeah. I think I think she will. I think this is how it is going to be resolved. And so, like you said, you gave two options, Matt. I'm going to vote for the first option you said, but I agree. I like coming on a panel. Yeah, ideally, right? I think, but anyways, I'm very glad that we're all here, having a civilized chat. And that's what's beautiful about, YouTube and coming together. And so I want to thank all of you for your time, and especially everybody. Thank you all for sending in those super chats. Thank you everybody who, I know we've got, thousands of people watching this live stream amongst all the channels. So I appreciate, all of you coming in and spending time with us this wonderful Sunday, wherever you are in the world.
I'd like to say something. I've seen a few comments, Matt. No offense, but you've gotten a few not exactly fans in the comments.
I imagined I would.
and I'll tell you what. You know what? For all of you guys that are feeling like you need to get Matt out of here, we don't. This is the problem.
Yes, I agree with that.
We need to listen to all sides of all. Listen, I have known Matt for many years, and so this is the opportunity to have somebody with a possible other opinion. We're not going to beat each other up here, guys. We're having a discussion. I think that's the only way that we can move forward in this society. All that people are saying is that stay in your bubble. Get everybody out in your bubble or out of your bubble. Just keep them outside. There's no way we're going to move forward as a society that way. So let's get us all in here and talk.
That's absolutely great. Yeah.
No, Jayo, you've put a great thing, and I think for Jayo and myself as Americans, this is the situation, that we're facing in our country. As we see the United States, this is the result of our election recently, is how polarized and divided our world is in America. But for Matt, for Jayo and myself, we've talked about this, Matt, is just the importance of trying to find that common ground, and I think. Sure. I know I'm kind of getting off topic here, but it is relating to the fact, let's say if you look at Democrats and Republicans in the US, at the end of the day, we're Americans, for our country, we need to find common ground and move forward. And same thing, I think when you're talking China and the US, there's going to be differences, but we have to find common ground moving forward. We've had, I saw earlier a comment on Twitter that was just like, why are we not at war with China? Let's go on, USA, let's declare war and just start bombing them. Like, really? Yeah. Like, is that really what we need to do in the world right now? Of course not. No. So, no, I agree. I don't want anybody to attack Matt. I mean, he's brought in some really great information. We've had a very civilized chat, and that's what we want to have. And again, like, what's the point of getting, everybody together and we just all compliment each other and say the same thing? This is a much more constructive, right? Let's have a constructive debate.
If I could just say it's more about communication rather than attacking each other. It's no good everybody attacking each other. It's about talking, communicating, negotiating, dialogue. If countries could do that, I'm sure if America and China got lots of their diplomats together and talked it through, negotiated it out instead of just this sort of attacking each other all the time, I think that'd be a way better way to go. And that's why something like what we're doing here now is good. I may not agree with you, but I accept you have a different opinion. And sometimes you just agree to disagree. It's as simple as that. You don't need to attack people just because they have a different opinion. I think there's too much of that going on in the world now. Just because they have a different opinion, they're being attacked and vilified, and it's crazy.
Anyways.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've still got I've got skin in the game in China. My wife and kids are still in Shenzhen. I was in Shenzhen for a better part of 8 years and traveling back and forth between Shenzhen and Hong Kong, where my office was, almost on a daily basis. And then kids, you go less. But no, I want to put it out there. I'm not anti-China, but that doesn't necessarily make me pro-China either. I'm pro-people, if that makes any sense. I am not against Chinese technology making their way into the world. This whole thing about the Huawei 5G, sure, there might be a backdoor, but Windows has backdoors. A lot of different things have backdoors, but they're backdoors to service the equipment, right? To make sure everything works. It's not to say that the U.S. government can't figure out how to hack the Huawei system. I mean, it's zeros and ones. At the end of the day, they'll figure it out. It's economic protectionism. That's all it is. But then you have a guy like Trump who turns it into nationalistic pride, right? And it just blows up. I've used products in China, like Meiju. They're from just north of Zhuhai. They make cell phones. They started off making MP3 players when those were a thing. And so I bought their phones, and they were great for about 5 minutes, mainly because I couldn't access Google as well as I could when I'm outside of China, but that's irrelevant to the equipment. But that's what I'm trying to say is I think people just need to get the emotion out of the way and just look at the facts. Yeah, I understand the optics of the Meng Wanzhou case look bad, but let's look at the facts. This is what's happened. She's in the process now because we're trying to protect her freedoms, her rights. Otherwise, she'd be in the U.S. now. And that's what it is. Canada's allowing her to make her case to not go to the U.S. And that's what's beautiful about our law system. Yes, there are flaws. I'm not going to say there aren't. But be that as it may, I mean, yeah, I could go on for hours.
Okay. Let's wrap it up, guys. Let's wrap it up. Listen, you know what we can do is we're going to discuss this later and maybe figure out some other topics that we have a spectrum of ideas about, and maybe we can do this again. Cool. If you think this was an interesting thing that you'd like to see more of, please leave a comment in either of our comment sections or one of our 3 comment sections. Go ahead, Cyrus.
Yeah, last thing, just another super chat from Haza China Vlogs. Guys, if you check out his YouTube channel, I really like what he's doing. I'm actually going to do a video with him coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. But just the last thing, this is a great way to end it. If you have something to say, you also need to be open to hearing what others have to say too. This live stream is an amazing example of that. So thank you, Haza, for your continued support, to the super chats, and being a great guy. You guys, check out his YouTube channel as well, if you haven't already.
Cyrus, what do you got going on? What do you got coming up? Anything you want to punch or plug?
I've got a couple videos that are coming out. I just launched my video yesterday. I gave a speech last week at a university here in Canada, entitled "Why the World Needs China." It debuted yesterday. Has some really good comments
cool.
and good views.
Yep.
So check that one out. I'm talking.
Wait, Cyrus. Ian didn't like it very much, though. I mean,
He
you know,
didn't.
Ian didn't like
Yes.
it very much.
Ian Young, he didn't like it, but that's okay. I mean, the great thing about Ian Young is, again, like we said, I'm not going to attack anybody, and I get it. He has a different opinion than me, and you know what? I'm going to meet Ian Young in the Vancouver courthouse at this Hmong case one day, and you know what? I mean, again, like, I don't want to hate anybody. I would love to sit down and have a beer with him. I'd love to have a chat with him, because I think that's what you need to be open to have these discussions. I don't want to hate anybody, and I don't want to, I'm not looking at it as like, oh, he's not on my team, or he's the enemy. I would never do that. I didn't agree with the article that he wrote about me, but at the end of the day, everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Just to let you know, just to give some, because I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here don't know who that is who's watching. Ian Young is a journalist for the Southern China Morning Post, and he railed on Cyrus on an occasion, and it was pretty unwarranted. In my opinion, it was pretty unwarranted. There's been
to that level,
back and
anyways.
forth there.
Yeah, but anyways, I had that video launch yesterday. I have a new video that I'm producing right now. It's going to be launching later this week, and I'm talking about China's minority languages. It's going to be a very interesting video talking about what's happening in Inner Mongolia, Xinjiang, Tibet, even in Hong Kong, where we're talking about, the Chinese government. Very hot topic. I'm going to provide some information on that. And then the next video that I'm going to be filming this week is going to say why I left China after 10 years. And, and I want, I've had that question a lot. Many people have asked, Cyrus, why are you in Canada? Why are you an American living in Canada? Why did you leave China? So I'm going to finally answer that question and come up with a really good video to discuss that. Yeah, that's what's on my channel.
Lee, what do you got? Sign off. What do you got coming up?
Okay, so me and Oliver have been pretty busy and continue to be busy. So we're here in Hainan. We've got a cool event that we covered with lots of sort of cosplay girls featuring that one. So that'll be coming soon.
Ooh, I saw the thumbnail for that. That's pretty hot.
Yeah. And then we arrived here at this sort of Hilton Resort because we had a couple of days. We're going off to Shanghai tomorrow to play with Big Boys Toys at a Big Boys Toys exhibition, sort of massive excavators and bulldozers and drilling machines. But rather than fly back to Shenzhen for one day and then fly off to Shanghai, we thought we'd chill here. And we arrived here yesterday, and we arrived on the day they're having kind of a big Christmas party. So we got involved in a bit of a Christmas party going on here, which was pretty cool. We got Santa Claus and some really nice kids from the local school singing carols and things like that. And then today we went on the beach and walked along the seashore, recording some walk and talks about a couple of sort of topics. One, we discussed like this top-down management, top-down sort of levels of authority here in China and our thoughts on that. So we got a lot of content coming out in the next couple of weeks. Once Oliver's got it all edited, of course. So yeah.
And I just want to. Can I apply for an internship at the Barrett channel? I just want to roll. I want to roll like Lee and Ollie one day. That's all I want.
They are jet setters. They are always going someplace or another place.
Lee, I'm pretty good. I can film. I'm pretty good. I can help.
Hey, let me put two things out here because I was talking to Cyrus and also Lee about this. I'm working with we're doing some projects with a company called Geely, who makes these cars, Lincoln Co. and different things. And they make a Bobby style taxi, like a London taxi. And I thought, wouldn't the concept for a show be great? We get Lee as the driver. And he's got this British accent, and he's driving around China as a taxi driver, and then I'm in the back seat as like Watson. So he's like Sherlock, I'm Watson, and we just drive around China solving mysteries. I think that would be an excellent show idea.
I like it.
The China
Hey,
Mythbusters.
I want to
Yeah, Mythbusters.
I want to make a little bit of an announcement here on my
Yeah.
channel.
You got something.
Yeah,
You're
this,
growing hair.
Let's hear this.
Yeah, I'm growing some. That's it. That's
There.
the announcement. No. I was approached recently for a CCTV travel show. So I'm going to be going and filming for 12 days in 4 locations all around China. It's going to be a professional thing with professional crew that's going to go, and we're going to. The theme of the show is 1,000-year-old ancient cities in China, and I'll be sleeping I'll be riding camels and sleeping in a desert oasis. I'll be looking at amazing bridges in different parts of China, and it's going to be really, really amazing. I've read the script. I'm really excited about it. And so I'm building a big buffer of videos on my channel so that it can compensate for the amount of time that I probably won't be able to produce videos while I'm on the road. So I'm really excited. And this is my first time announcing that. So I'm very excited about that. I'm glad to share it.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations, Matt. On that note, can I also apply for an internship on the Jiao Nation?
You get here, Cyrus.
Okay.
I can use you.
Okay, I just can't get into the country right now. Darn it, So anyways.
Oh, I can. I'll be right there, Matt.
Come on down.
Just a thank you
Okay,
to WC Joanne Lee for the super chat she's just sent you. Thank you, gents. You guys are amazing. Thank you for your fair views on China.
Yeah, and I had last one from Ronald Kim. If you're still watching, Ronald sent in, thank you all for the live discussion. So thank you, Ronald, and everybody from today's super chats, and everybody. Really appreciate your time and
really
support,
great,
guys.
really great comment section. Really nice chat. I've enjoyed listening and kind of conversing with you guys and listening to what you've had to say. So thanks very much. If you want to see more, contact us from the Jiao Nation. Jiao.
Take care.
Take care. And then Cyrus. And then
guys,
Matt.
we'll see you guys. See you guys soon.
See you later, guys.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.